Well, hello, welcome back. We've made it this far, and we are in Genesis 18. I really appreciate all of the kind words and subscriptions. In May, we're going to try to do some stuff maybe on the book of Jonah. Should be pretty exciting. I think Jonah is a very interesting book that tells us a lot about God. Not as much about Jonah as maybe we've made it out to be, but it's a really, really great book. I highly encourage you to read it. And I hope you've read Genesis 18 because we're going to jump right into that. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, comment, heart it, thumb up it, whatever you want to do, because everything you do gets it in front of somebody else. So that's a good thing, not just for me, but for the world. So let's jump into Genesis 18. And again, I'm going to read from the Complete Jewish Bible. You can read, I also use the Immerse Bible, the New Living Translation is what that's written in. But I think this one is a little better on the Complete Jewish Bible. So we're going to jump right in there. It says, Adonai appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance to the tent during the heat of the day. He raised his eyes and looked, and there in front of him stood 3 men. On seeing them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, prostrated himself on the ground, and said, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, please don't leave your servant. Please let me send for some water so that you can wash your feet. Then rest under the tree, and I will bring a piece of bread. Now that you have come to your servant, refresh yourselves before going on. Very well, they replied. Do what you said. I think that reads better than the New Living Translation because it really shows you the heart of hospitality. And in the Middle East and the Hebrew culture of the time, and it's still true to this day, hospitality is so important. And we hear stories of, people giving up their daughters to protect people that are visiting, and we just don't understand that. But that's because hospitality was at a much higher value to them than it is to us today. So that's why we see it that way sometimes. But Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quickly, 3 measures of the best flour. Knead it and make cakes. Abraham ran to the herd, took a good tender calf and gave it to the servant who hurried to prepare it. Then he took curds, milk, and the calf which he had prepared and set it all before the men. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. They said to him, Where's Sarah, your wife? He said, There in the tent. He said, I will certainly return to you around this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Sarah heard him from the entrance of the tent behind him. Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. Sarah was past the age of childbearing. That's what the world said. That was a fact among the world. God doesn't really care about our scientific facts. So Sarah laughed to herself, thinking, I'm old, and so is my Lord. Am I to have pleasure again? Adonai said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and ask, Am I really going to bear a child when I'm so old? Is anything too hard for Adonai? At the time set for it, at this season next year, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah denied it, saying, I didn't either laugh, because she was afraid. He said, Not so, you did laugh. The men set out from there and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to see them on their way. Adonai said, Should I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Inasmuch as Abraham is sure to become a great and strong nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by him. For I have made myself known to him, so that he will give orders to his children and to his household after him to keep the way of Adonai and do what is right and just, so that Adonai may bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. It's really important too, because he says, should I hide it from him? Because it's going to affect him. Everything that I'm going to do is going to affect him. So I should tell him about it and see what he's going to do. So Adonai said, The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin is so serious, as Sodom and Gomorrah is the English version of Sodom and Amorah, which is the Hebrew, that I will go down and see whether their deeds warrant the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. The men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before Adonai. Abraham approached and said, Will you actually sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Maybe there are 50 righteous people in the city. Will you actually sweep the place away and not forgive it for the sake of the 50 righteous who are there? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous along with the wicked. so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike. Far be it from you. Shouldn't the judge of all the earth do what is just? It's important, too, that we're hearing what Abraham thinks is just. And that really doesn't matter. When it comes to God, what he says is what matters. Adonai said, if I find in Sodom 50 who are righteous, then I will forgive the whole place for their sake. Abraham answered, hear now, I, who am but dust and ashes, have taken it upon myself to speak to Adonai. What if there are 5 less than 50 righteous? He said, I won't destroy it if I find 45 there. He spoke to him again. What if 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40, I won't do it. He said, I hope Adonai won't be angry if I speak. What if 30 are found there? He said, I won't do it if I find 30 there. He said, hear now, I have taken it upon myself to speak to Adonai. What if 20 are found there? He said, for the sake of the 20, I won't destroy it. He said, I hope Adonai won't be angry if I speak just once more. What if 10 are found there? He said, for the sake of the 10, I won't destroy it. Adonai went on his way as soon as he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. So there's so much here. This is something supernatural is occurring. These 3 had authority. They knew Sarah's name. They knew she laughed. They knew all the details. When he says, where is your wife Sarah? It's simply a nice way to kind of dumb things down when communicating to humans. We can't understand the full scope. You're certainly not going to understand it from me. I've got a limited vocabulary and imagination just like every other human. But verse 10 shows Yahweh's promise to Abraham of a son. So in Genesis 12, remember we're in Genesis 18, but in Genesis 12, God says he'll make Abraham into a great nation. And then in 15, he promised an heir. And then in Genesis 17, he assured Abraham that Sarah would give him a son. And then now in 18, it's time to fulfill those promises. Each of God's promises builds upon each other too. They're all work together, his earliest promises and his later promises, which is the biggest problem with having a New Testament and the Old Testament being obsolete, because that's not how God works. And believe me, the people that say and believe that know better. They just choose not to point it out. So the new covenant is dependent on all the earlier ones. And God will reveal and bring about his purposes almost exclusively through his Hebrew people, beginning with Abraham, who is the first Hebrew. But he will use the Hebrew people to bring about his promises, which is why Jesus is a Jew. Repentance does not play a role in the story either. Look, it's only about whether those who are not doing wrong will be judged along with those who are doing wrong. And this is an important biblical principle. It's not just that Abraham is being annoying and begging God or judging God or saying things to God he really shouldn't say, which I agree he shouldn't. I think it's a concept of teaching us the argument more than it is whether Abraham is right or wrong. It's to teach us that God does make that distinction. There is a difference between God pouring out his wrath and permitting bad things to happen. An earthquake where a bunch of people die is not Yahweh's wrath necessarily. It may be just a natural occurrence of what's happening in the world. But God's wrath is when God sends a catastrophe. It's unique. Its scope is beyond what nature could normally do. It's a natural thing that is just blown up, like the plagues and the flood and stuff like that. And it occurs at a time when God ordains, not just randomly. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is going to be another one of those situations. An outpouring of God's wrath is preceded by a warning. So I know if you've ever had kids, we've all heard, I didn't even know. It's like, yep, we've all know. And if you say, but wait, I don't know, read the Bible. It's all in there. So when it's God's wrath, the good are divided away from the wicked. So bad things happen to good people, yes. But when it's God's wrath, they're divided. They're separated. He won't pour out his wrath on the righteous and the wicked at the same time. So hearing that warning is our job. Giving that warning is God's job. But if we don't hear it, that's on us. So the final number was 10, not 1, even though you probably heard 1 in many church sermons, because for some reason we changed that to 1. I've not quite figured that out, but I do have some idea why we changed it to 1 instead of 10. But later on, we're going to find out that 10 is actually the number Hebrews believe to have a useful congregation, to have what they will call a minyan, a service, or a prayer group. It's called a minyan, which if you've watched the show, I think it's a movie about minions. I can't remember the name of the movie now, but all those little yellow guys, that's where that came from. That word came from. Was minyan means 10, and it's about the perfect size of a group, minimum to have prayer in some Hebrew circles or even a service. So Yahweh was saying that providing there is a minyan in the wicked population, he would stay his hand of judgment. So it says in verse 33, Yahweh departed. Keep that in mind when we begin the next chapter, because chapter 19, all of these things are together. Chapter and verses were added later. So this is a continual story. So when we jump into chapter 19, remember that last part in verse 33 where it says Yahweh departed. So God bless. Please share this. Let people know about it. Give me your feedback. I've loved hearing from you guys, Steve and Jamie and Jill. I really enjoy your comments, your questions, and your encouragement, because this has been seen by it. I think one of the things was like over 60,000 impressions, which is crazy to me, but it's been viewed over 1,000 times, and I appreciate that. I really do. It's completely free for now. We're going to do some paid stuff going forward soon, but for now, just share it with all your friends. And we're on Spotify. So me and Joe Rogan have that in common. God bless. Talk to you soon.